34 minutes after 7 o'clock on a Friday morning, 97.1 Wadsworth Community Radio. And in the studio with us from Forever Amber Acres, we have Michelle Bollinger and John Hockey this morning. And we're going to be talking about some very special therapeutic animals here this morning. So welcome.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming on and joining us. Well, we are new to learning about Forever Amber Acres. And so I know that it is a veteran and first responders type of equine therapy and possibly even more. So I would love if you could tell us a little bit about Forever Amber Acres. And then one of my favorite questions always to ask is, I know there's always so much in a name, and I'd love for you to talk about the name of Forever Amber Acres and its significance.
Yeah, thanks, Tina. Thanks for having us. So I'm Michelle Bollinger. I'm the founder and executive director of Forever Amber Acres. And 15 years ago, I formed Forever Amber Acres. I ran it privately for 5 years before becoming nonprofit in 2013. We're located in Medina on Granger Road, just a few miles away from here. And so our focus is on veterans and first responders through our VETS program that stands for Veteran Equine Therapy Services. And we have a mission at our 501c3 organization that we rescue horses that have gone through abuse and trauma, and we bring them back to our sanctuary where they spend the rest of their days after we have rehabbed them. And the horse's way of giving back is to serve veterans and first responders and others in the community, but vets and first responders are our focus. And they provide equine therapy services, wellness, learning. We do a lot of mindfulness, meditation, breath work with them, all kinds of things with horses. And they're very, very healing animals. All kinds of research will show that.
And I think all animals, of course, we know dogs and cats because more people have them, and it's easier to have dogs and cats, those type of things. But again, there are just so many stories out there where you'll see little kids with wombats or baby kangaroos, and again, the interaction that the animals have with adults is, they know more about our mood than we do in a lot of cases.
That's very true.
And it seems like, it seems like horses have maybe a little more of that ESP than some animals do, correct?
So horses, actually, there's a lot of research behind this, and even the Department of Veteran Affairs, they will back this up with research that's been done, that horses are fight or flight animals, and their job in the wild or in a pasture, which is a domesticated wild situation for horses mostly these days, is to keep themselves and their herd alive and safe and well. And their way to do that is to be hypervigilant, much like veterans and first responders can be. So that's what that connection is from a lot of people that have gone through trauma and have experienced those kinds of situations. Horses have like an aura, so an energy field of 300 yards. So they already lock into, like we always tell people, we have almost 1,000-foot driveway, and when people are turning down our driveway, the horses have already started tuning into what's going on. And it's interesting when our team is kind of waiting for clients to come. The horses are one way, they might be like taking a little snooze in our therapy arena, waiting for the client to show up, and all of a sudden, something, chaos sometimes ensues or something different in their behavior. And we're like, okay, what's going to go on today?
Isn't it fascinating?
Yeah, it really is. It is. And another really interesting thing about horses is they can hear and lock into our heartbeat 50 foot away. So they can help us lower our blood pressure. And if we're having an anxiety attack, if we can lock into the breath rate of a horse, which is very similar to a person, 12 to 16 breaths per minute, it can help us be more mindful of, whatever thoughts are going through our mind to bring that anxiety down.
Well, we had watched the one video in the information that you set out here about the one veteran, of course, that was there with the horse, and and he had always had trouble with with a lot of in therapy they would say, well, you need to breathe and breathe. Well, he was a sniper, and so when you start taking slow breaths, I mean, to him, that wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. That was taking him back to the battlefield, and so when he would do a slow pause breath, he was thinking pulling the trigger, and so I mean, in that little video there, when all of a sudden the helicopter came over and that anxiety attack hit again, and the horse came up to him and just knew and started. It's the first time it said that that he was able to do the breathing exercise, and it was because of and the horse just tuned into him.
Yeah, horses will almost force us to be in the present moment, and that's a wonderful gift that they can give us, whether we're in therapy or just working with them in a traditional setting. If we listen to them, they always have the answers for us, and I know that might sound a little hokey, but I'm here to tell you that it's true, and yeah, I think John might be able to help back me up on that a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah. Good, John. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, for just the sense that you feel when you're around horses, there's a lot of you spend time in the service as a first responder. It doesn't matter. There's things that will trigger certain emotions, or sometimes you just don't even realize your heart starts to race. But when you're around those horses, it really just becomes a place for you to essentially what we call be heard. You don't have to talk to anybody. You don't have to say anything. You can just kind of feed off the horse. The horse feeds off of you, and you can just take the time to figure stuff out.
And again, this is a little more. It's. I mean, give us a little bit of your background, John,
Sure.
Because you were in the military.
I was. So 22 years of service. I joined in May of 2001, which is only significant because 4 months later, the world changed. Mm-hmm. So over that 22 years of service, 16 trips overseas, 11 of those I would consider combat deployments for about a total of 5 years in combat across everything from Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and half a dozen places in between. For me, those really from 2001 to 2017, I was on the go. There was rarely a year that I wasn't deployed somewhere into the world. And what happened in 2017 for me was that I got transferred to a unit down in Florida, and it was a non-deployable unit, which was at that time great for me. After 16 years, I needed that break. Mm-hmm. But I started to notice things. One of the things that we do very well in the military, because it's just ingrained into our culture, is compartmentalize stuff. So we put stuff on the shelf. And after so many trips, that shelf was getting pretty big, and I started to notice things different, but didn't fully address it then. And I had, for a non-deployable unit, I deployed from that job too. So it really wasn't until about 2020 or so when I was like, okay, we need to change jobs and look at retirement. So looking at retirement, huge change for us. And I say us because it was, our family. It was a family affair to get out of the military. Came here, moved up here to Wadsworth, somewhat intentional in the fact that there's no military bases around here. So, there was some separation. What I noticed also, within our family was that it wasn't just me that, that was seeing a lot of those effects too. So my oldest son and I, we started looking for volunteer work. Honestly, just Googled volunteer with horses and up popped Forever Amber Acres. So we started volunteering there last April. I had retired in March, came up here, and we started volunteering, and then we just started seeing, the benefits of that constant interaction with the horses. It wasn't just for me, but it was my son as well. I mean, he's just. I mean, it has done him wonders as well. On the veteran side, what that volunteering gave me, and we'll talk about the programs that we offer as well, but the volunteering, it gave me that time, with the horses, and it really exposed me to the point where I wanted to participate in some of the programs as well.
Well, for someone like me, of course, 67 years old, older or whatever, if I were to picture myself going into whether it's the military or something like that, a totally different lifestyle change, a way of thinking, again, as you mentioned, all those things. Well, you were in that environment since 2001, and then when you come back, I mean, it may seem to the general public that it's like, well, you go to the grocery store, do this. I mean, but that acclimation, if you think of putting yourself into your situation the other way around, it's the same thing. And so getting acclimated back to what we think is normal society, and again, some of the things, normal society is getting mad because the stoplight changed, not because every time you go down a street, there might be 3 snipers on buildings looking at. I mean, there's a different mindset driving down the street between here and in places where you were.
Yeah, and the rise of technology. I always tell the story. I was on the invasion into Iraq in 2003. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have the internet. With us, and what started off, we were told, hey, 6 weeks, 60 days, you'll be back home. Almost 13 months later, we came back home, but from that time until now, I mean, the amount of technology that we're using and the variation, in threats that we face, and even first responders face on a daily basis, it evolves. And if you don't take care of yourself at the same time, it's going to pile up to the point of falling apart.
John, as you're talking about this, I think that a lot of people listening can relate, not maybe at a veteran level. And I do want to say thank you for your service, and your story has me a little emotional as well. But I think people can relate in terms of the pandemic. The pandemic created some PTSD for a lot of people. And saying, oh, it's just for 1 month, but the world was shut down for about a year. And it was so much more than what we ever expected. And it caused just a variety of issues. And, I can speak for my family. It was a beautiful time in some ways for the pandemic, but it was also one of the hardest seasons of our life, and not even so much related to the pandemic, but related to my mom's health. And because of that, I have been traumatized from her diagnosis and some other things. And so, as I'm listening to you talk about how much this has been helpful for you, and I do restorative yoga, and I know the power of breathing, and especially breath through your nose, and I'm a huge animal lover. And I think that there are so many ways that animals are healing, all different kinds of animals. I'm just feeling like, gosh, maybe this is a direction that I need to move into to help with my anxiety and to help just another piece of what I always call my healing puzzle.
I'd love that. You're more than welcome to come out. We'd love to show you, how we can help you, with your challenges, because, like I said, the horses will help anybody, even you're volunteering or in a program, it's amazing.
Michelle, tell us a little bit about how Forever Amber Acres got its name. We don't want to miss that story.
So Forever Amber was the first horse that I rescued. I did not grow up with a horse background. That's something that people are kind of amazed by. I'm 50,
you would think, right? I mean,
right?
Usually,
I've been doing this for 15 years. I'm 57 right now. So, do the math. I was in my 40s when I started this journey, and I was working in corporate America, kind of just, I had a great job and took care of my family, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And I just always, from a very small child, I always felt like I was destined to do more. And sometimes I would cry myself to sleep as an adult. I just feel like I have more of a purpose, but I don't know what that is. So in 2005, my mother had passed away. My dad had previously passed away. And, I started reevaluating my life, and each of my siblings, there was 5 of us, and we each received a $33,000 inheritance, which wasn't a lot, but it was a lot for me to do something meaningful with instead of paying bills or going on a trip or something like that. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do with it? So a few months later passed, and I was watching a national horse racing, a race. It was the Preakness, which is one of the Triple Crown races. And there was a horse by the name of Barbaro, who a lot of people remember that name. This is in 2005. And Barbaro had a catastrophic breakdown on national television. And I can't really explain to you, but the magnitude of what that did, I still get choked up thinking about it, or if I see that replay of that, it really touched me in some very profound way. So I went home that night. My husband and I were actually out to dinner celebrating our anniversary at a restaurant, and I lost it because I saw this accident. And we left. We went back home, and I started all of a sudden questioning what happens to all these racehorses once their days on the track are over. If they, have a breakdown, or if they get old, or they're not performing. And I literally stayed up for 24 hours. I did not go to sleep that night. And I researched everything possible, and I unfolded what I didn't know anything about, is the horse slaughter industry. And every year in the United States, we send about 150,000 horses over our borders for slaughter. To be consumed in other countries. Mm-hmm. So I yeah, sorry about that. Okay. That was an alarm for one of our animals to get medication.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Yeah.
So the long and the short of it is, my husband and my daughter woke up, and I said, I know what I'm going to do with my inheritance. I'm going to rescue a racehorse. And I'm not married anymore, by the way. He's like, no, you're not. And I was like, yeah, I am. And literally 2 months to the day later, I rescued Forever Amber. And I had her in a Wadsworth boarding facility, actually. And I was, living in Bath. I was going to see the horse after work. I was working in Akron, and I was just all over the place, trying to, take care of this horse and learn everything about her. I hired a trainer and learned to ride her, because I did some horseback riding here and there, but nothing serious. So a year into my relationship with Forever Amber, people were telling me, oh, this horse is too much for you. She's crazy. She's going to kill you. You need a nice, docile quarter horse. You need to get rid of her. I'm like, I don't care if I can never ride her, but I'm not giving up on her. And I ended up seeing just a real change in her behavior. And she went from being really, really hot and spicy, the redheaded mare, to very depressed. And the color of her coat and her coat was just changing. So I had the veterinarian come out. She was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And that's why she was acting and behaving the way that she was, because, her brain was, not functioning properly. So I quickly realized that I needed to find a special needs facility to take care of her, to help me take care of her. And they don't exist. So what did I do? I bought a farm. I bought 11 and a half acres of blank canvas here in Medina, and built it up, and it's now what's Forever Amber Acres.
Well, again, almost like you were.
Can we pause for a second? I'm sorry. I've muted myself because I'm a little sniffly over here, to be honest with you. What a beautiful story. You remind me so much of myself. This story has touched me so deeply. And when something really hits you, that you need to listen and you need to do something. I love this, because for anybody listening thinking, well, I don't have the tools, I don't have the resources, I've never done something before. Dream big, and when you feel it, it'll happen.
I completely agree. And yeah, and even the whole thing with the marriage, like my husband and I, we parted on like very, very peaceful terms. He actually helped. He volunteered at my farm for that, first like probably year and a half, even after, we were going through our divorce, to help me like get my foot on the ground, because I didn't have any volunteers. I had nobody to help me. I was living in one place, I was limited on money, and I wanted to do more. And I was like, then I started rescuing more horses, but like basically everything that I had in my salary was just going to pay for the horses, and I was going broke very quickly. So I talked to some folks that I knew, and they're like, what you're doing is really like the work of a charity, of a nonprofit. You need to form a 501c3. So I got together a group of not just like equine or, animal lovers, although I think most of our board directors do have that in common, but a group of professionals that actually could help me, whether it was they had a financial background, a marketing background, grant writing background, various things like that, to help form the organization that is now Forever Amber Acres. And I really think that's another thing that might set us apart a little bit, is that, we're not just a bunch of gun-ho, like, animal lovers that are just going to keep, like, rescuing animals and getting in, too far. We do everything. We have a plan. We have a business plan, and it's been a very methodical way that we've built up to what we're doing now, which is the therapy program.
Well, I guess what, and again, not coming from, as you were not originally either, from, the horse background, equine background, I guess it's surprising, if people come out and say, oh, there's, animals that are abused, dog, cats, or whatever, because they're part of, you see them everywhere or whatever, but to realize that, it goes on again, but not to the magnitude that, with the horses. Mm-hmm. You just know, the 150,000, those numbers were just, they're decimal points off from what I would have even guessed. Mm-hmm.
And that's every year.
Yeah, every year like that. And again, to realize that was a big education on my part here. That was But I know the one thing.
Well, I was just going to say, we have 5 minutes left, and I don't want to miss out on this. I know that you wanted to talk about a newly funded program of yours by the VA.
Yes. Yeah. So we worked real hard, to get them to recognize us, but we have been chosen as one of 12 nonprofits nationwide to receive funding from the VA through Horses for Mental Health, which is an organization that we're a part of. It's another nonprofit that, again, is a nationwide, mental health professionals and horses connected together. And so we have started a program that's funded by this grant, and it's called... John came up with the name.
There you go.
So it's called Herd to Herd. So HERD, the horses, to be heard. Mm-hmm. With hearing. So the whole intent again, and for any veterans that might be listening, or anybody who knows a veteran, you don't have to have a diagnosis. You don't have to be seeing a doctor. You don't have to have any of that.
You just have to show up.
Yes, that's it.
It's a 16-hour commitment between January and September of 2024, because there was pretty specific time
for the grant, right.
time frame that we have to use those funds, and we don't want them to go to waste. And we know that there's a lot of veterans out there, or active duty military also, that can benefit from it. It's not considered therapy; it's considered equine wellness. The VA was very specific about that, because a lot of veterans are over-therapized, and they're just done with therapy. Therapy is very important. We're not discounting that, but this can be a good add-on to whatever therapy service maybe that they're receiving, or if they haven't received the results in traditional therapy, this is a great opportunity for veterans and military to try this out.
So now, because of the grant and those type of things, It can talk about any vet that might want to become part of the program. Do they have to? Is there a referral? Can
No
they
referral.
just knock on the door and show up? Or so talk
it's
about it.
not
Anybody
yet.
that's listening. What do they do to get involved?
Yeah, so go to our website. It's foreveramber.org. And there's a tab that says programs, and you'll see a tab that says Veteran Equine Wellness Services. And it's a very, very simple contact form. You just put your name, the county you live in, your phone number, your email address, and tell us that you want to join the program. And then we'll get back with you and give you some options on dates. Currently, we have Monday afternoon dates and Saturday morning afternoon dates and times available. But if there's a need, we are more than happy to add more, programs or, sessions depending on folks' schedules. We don't want to turn anybody away, and it's a free program. So just remember that you don't pay a penny.
And again, because of the program, again, and it's not just that we want to emphasize. It's not just for Medina, for certain county area residents. I mean,
we're
if
currently
someone
serving,
wants to drive from Columbus up or whatever, I mean, they are able to participate in
and
this.
we're currently serving veterans in 11 counties in Northeast Ohio and Indiana. Yeah. That's how powerful
that's
our program
amazing.
is, that folks are making that journey.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I keep muting because I'm writing and I don't want you to have to hear all the keypad. Guys, wow, it's been truly an honor to have you both on. I'm so glad we did. I'm so glad we got to learn about Forever Amber Acres. And my last question is, what ended up happening to Forever Amber?
Yeah. So
how much more time did you get?
Till 2010. And I had her humanely euthanized at that point because I knew that there was no turning back. But she did have a good quality of life on medication. Got her moved into the farm, and she had some buddies. And she's with us in spirit and forever because her name is, she's the namesake of our foundation. Yeah. And
I love it so much.
Yeah, and I do everything I do. I always go back to her, that I'm doing that for her and for my parents. My parents maybe never were able to give me that horse that I always dreamt of having as a child when I was a kid.
That
but
pony for Christmas.
In the end, but in the end, they actually gave that to me. So I know my mom and dad are close, watching over me. Yeah.
Well, Michelle, thanks again for coming in.
How am I supposed to say news after
I know,
this?
Sure. Go ahead, Tina. Let me play the news bumper now. All right. And again, John, thanks again for coming in, and thank you for your service as well.
Thank you so much.
And again, I know that in talking with your wife and seeing some things here that the time there too has been very special with your son as well.
Absolutely.
And so I know there's been some horses there that have had to move on or whatever, and just been some. I mean, he's really made that connection through you, because I mean I can imagine that with he was around when you were being deployed, and I know that he was probably, I'm just assuming, we have to go drop Dad off at the airport or see Dad off or something like that. And again, that the families serve as well when
Absolutely.
you serve.
For sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so we're
Michelle, thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah.
I know that you, following your heart, starting this nonprofit organization is really making a difference in the lives of so many furry friends and also people.
Yeah, and volunteers, we're volunteer run. We're run on donations only. So we have volunteers that range from 12 to 77 years old. Horse experience or no horse experience, we'll teach you.
I love it.
Yeah.
And you know what? I love that. I knew that you would say you would teach them because you are self-taught and then had some help. It's just really a beautiful
We use a lot of
thing for me.
holistic methods with our horses it's non-traditional. So it's definitely, we learn something every day.
Well, we certainly learned something today, didn't we, Tina?
Oh, yes. Yes. It's something that I'm going to be thinking about for, the next coming days. Yeah.
Thanks, Tina. You come out.
Okay.
We'll take care of you. Thank you.
I'm absolutely going to get in touch with you. I for sure will be out.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
97.1 Wadsworth Community Radio.